Sometimes the people who cheer for you the loudest are the same ones who hope you'll never outgrow the box they built for you. I didn't understand that truth until the day my family turned my greatest achievement into my deepest wound. I'm Sarah Chen, and long before anyone ever called me a tech innovator or a self-made CEO, I was just the quiet daughter working in a dimly lit repair shop that smelled of dust, solder, and Dad's old cologne. Most people would walk past our shop without even noticing it, a cramped little computer repair business squeezed between a laundromat and a rundown bakery in a dying strip mall. To outsiders, it had no future. To my father, it was his pride. To my sister Emma, it was an embarrassment. And to me, it was potential waiting to be unlocked. Growing up, I learned early that Emma was the chosen one. She was the child who got straight A's, the one Dad boasted about to relatives, the one everyone assumed would someday run a Fortune 500 company. When she walked into a room, people noticed. When I walked in, they assumed I was there to take notes. I didn't resent her, not back then, but I did feel the weight of her shadow, long and heavy over everything I did. While Emma went to an elite business school to study theories and frameworks, I stayed home with Dad, fixing broken motherboards and learning to build something real. I went to a modest local college for my computer science degree, attending classes in the morning and working at the shop in the afternoon. Emma loved to call my choices small-minded. "Sarah, you're wasting your talent here," she'd say, flipping her glossy hair during her holiday visits. "You should aim higher." But I didn't see small. I saw something else: opportunity. Late nights at the shop became my classrooms. The customers became my teachers. Every broken system revealed gaps in the market. I began to notice the same patterns: small businesses drowning in clunky, overpriced software that never fit their needs. They didn't need flashy features, they needed tools that worked. Tools I knew I could create. So during my final year of college, I built it, our first proprietary product. A simple, clean inventory management tool designed specifically for small shops like ours. Not revolutionary, not glamorous, but effective. And, most importantly, affordable. When I showed it to Dad, he squinted at the screen, confused and skeptical. "People will pay for this?" he asked, rubbing his temples. "They already are," I replied, showing him the pre-orders from local stores who tested my beta version. For the first time in my life, I saw something flicker in his eyes: pride. Real, warming, undeniable pride. "Maybe you're on to something, kiddo," he murmured. Those words nearly brought tears to my eyes. I had waited my whole life to hear them. If only I had known how fleeting they would be. The software took off slowly but steadily. I worked non-stop, 14-hour days, 7 days a week coding, marketing, teaching customers how to use it, and dreaming about what else we could build. Soon, we offered more tools, tailored solutions, and customized systems. Our reputation grew. Our client list expanded beyond our city, stretching into neighboring states. While Emma climbed the ladder at a fancy consulting firm in New York, I was turning a failing repair shop into a thriving tech company, one update, one client, one sleepless night at a time. Mom saw the toll it took on me. "Don't forget to rest, Sarah," she'd say, leaving warm meals on my desk. "You're allowed to have a life outside of work." But I wasn't chasing balance. I was chasing transformation, not just for the business, but for myself. Maybe I wanted to prove that the quiet daughter could be more than the family backup plan. 5 years after launching our first software, the company crossed a major milestone: $1 million in annual revenue. I celebrated in my office alone, eating instant noodles and staring at the profit sheet with trembling disbelief. I thought my family would be proud. I thought Emma would finally see me. Instead, my success drew her back like a magnet. Without warning, she quit her prestigious New York job and moved home. At the next family dinner, she stood up with the confidence of someone who has never heard the word no. "I think it's time I take my rightful place in the company," she announced, her tone regal and rehearsed. "With my business expertise, we can scale beyond anything you've done so far." Dad's face lit up like she had just solved world hunger. "That's wonderful, princess. We could really use your professional touch." My fork froze midair. Rightful place? Professional touch. This company, this dream, was something I had built from scratch. Brick by digital brick. But I swallowed my frustration and nodded. I wanted to believe we could be a team. That Emma would respect what I had built. And so, just like that, she became co-CEO. Not because she earned it. Not because she understood our systems or our clients. But because she was Emma, the favorite, the impressive one, the daughter with credentials that glittered. Dad insisted it would look good to have someone like her at the top. So I focused on development, operations, and innovation, the lifeblood of our company. Meanwhile, Emma branded herself as the glamorous face of our success. She gave interviews, won entrepreneurship awards, and accepted praise for innovations she barely understood. I kept building. She kept taking credit. And little by little, the fault lines beneath our family began to crack. I didn't know it yet, but the storm was already coming, and when it arrived, it would destroy everything we once were. But it would also reveal who I truly was. Success changes people. But more dangerously, it exposes them. And for my family, success didn't bring us closer, it peeled back the layers we had spent years pretending were solid. With Emma installed as co-CEO, the next 5 years became a study in contrast. I lived in the trenches of development, meeting clients, managing our growing team, and pushing out new products. Emma lived on stages, polished, charismatic, flawless, speaking about our shared vision, though the ideas were mostly mine. I didn't complain. I told myself titles didn't matter, public credit didn't matter, applause didn't matter. As long as the company thrived, as long as we were building something meaningful, I could endure being overshadowed. I had been invisible before. I could handle it again. But invisibility, when undeserved, breeds quiet resentment in both directions. By the time our annual revenue reached $50 million, the tension between Emma and me was thick enough to suffocate an entire boardroom. She began excluding me from major meetings, investor calls, strategic planning sessions, partnerships I had personally built. Just PR stuff, she would say, flashing that practiced smile. But I knew better. She was pushing me to the edges of the empire I had created. The more I built, the more she erased. The more I invested, the more she claimed. And the more I tried to talk to Dad, the more he insisted it was simply sibling rivalry. Emma's just ambitious, he said. Be proud she wants to help. Help. That word began to taste bitter. Still, I stayed focused. I kept building software people needed. I kept the company running. I kept the ship afloat while Emma polished the sails. Then came Dad's 60th birthday, the night everything changed. Emma insisted on planning the whole event herself. She rented the largest ballroom in the city's most expensive hotel, claiming Dad deserved a legacy-level celebration. But it wasn't really about Dad. It was about optics. About her image. About positioning herself as the strategic leader of Chen Technologies. When I arrived early to help set up, wearing a simple black dress, Emma's eyes narrowed. Couldn't you have made more of an effort? She hissed quietly. These are important people, Sarah. I offered no reaction. I had learned long ago that nothing enraged her more than my silence. Guests began filling the room, investors, clients, business associates, old family friends. Emma danced among them like a politician working a campaign. I stayed behind the scenes, making sure the AV worked properly, that Dad was comfortable, that the program ran smoothly. During dinner, glasses clinked, laughter echoed, and everything seemed almost normal until Emma tapped her champagne flute for attention. I expected a heartfelt tribute to Dad. I expected childhood memories, gratitude, warmth. Instead, she detonated a bomb. As we celebrate Dad's 60th, she began, her voice amplified through the ballroom, I believe this is the perfect moment to announce exciting changes at Chen Technologies. Changes approved by the board. My heart slammed against my ribs. Board? What board meetings? We hadn't had any formal ones in months. She continued with icy confidence. For too long, progress has been slowed by outdated thinking and resistance to necessary growth. Her eyes locked onto mine as the implication hit the room like a slap. That is why, effective immediately, she said, pausing for dramatic effect, I will be stepping in as sole CEO of Chen Technologies. Gasps rippled across the tables. Chairs shifted. Forks dropped. My breath caught in my throat. Dad, my father, was nodding. Proudly. Approvingly. As though this had been his idea all along. Emma wasn't finished. No. She had waited years for this moment, and she was going to savor it. Some individuals, she continued, her tone dripping with well-practiced sympathy, are better suited to technical roles rather than leadership. My sister Sarah has been adequate in maintaining our legacy systems. But the company needs vision. Innovation. Real leadership. Murmurs filled the air. Eyes, dozens of them, turned toward me. Curious. Judgmental. Pitying. Then came the blade that cut the deepest. Frankly, Sarah, you're just not cut out for high-level business. She smiled a cold, victorious smile. Your old-fashioned ideas and lack of proper business education have become a liability to our growth. Liability. The word echoed in my mind like a scream. I looked at Dad. I searched his face, begging silently for him to stand up, to say something, to stop this massacre. But he didn't. He simply nodded, his expression soft with pride for Emma. Mom stared at her plate, unable to look at me. In that moment, something inside me cracked, quietly, painfully. It wasn't just my position being ripped away. It was every sacrifice I had made. Every hour. Every piece of my life poured into a company they now believed I no longer deserved. The room waited for my reaction. Some expected tears. Some expected shouting. Some expected me to crumble right there under the chandelier lights. Instead, I stood. Slowly. Calmly. The scrape of my chair echoed like a gunshot. I walked towards Dad, placed a small wrapped gift in front of him, and whispered, "Happy birthday." Then I walked out. Through the ballroom doors. Down the marble hallway. Past the murmurs, the whispers, the pitying eyes. I didn't look back. But I didn't break down either. Because even as the humiliation burned through me, even as my heart pounded in my chest, another realization began to take shape. They had underestimated me. Again. Severely. And this time, they had crossed a line that would change everything. When I got home, surrounded by the awards, patents, and blueprints I had created, I powered up my laptop. A new fire lit inside me, sharp, cold, focused. Emma thought she had one. But she had forgotten one thing. I built this company. I knew every system, every contract, every clause. I knew exactly where the power was buried. As I began typing the emails that would ignite the biggest shift in the company's history, a calm smile spread across my face. Tomorrow, they would realize their mistake. And tomorrow, I would take back everything, not with shouting or tears, but with strategy. The kind of strategy you learn not in classrooms, but in trenches. The house didn't feel like home anymore. Every shadow felt sharper. Every sound felt suspicious. Every memory felt like a puzzle piece I had ignored. I couldn't sleep. I paced the living room, replaying the stranger's voice over and over in my head. Don't trust anyone in uniform. Bring the key. Your parents tried to protect you. Those words wouldn't stop echoing, not even for a second. By the time the first faint light of dawn crept through the curtains, my nerves were stretched thin. I grabbed a backpack, placed the mysterious key inside a small zipper pocket, and headed toward the east docks, just like the voice instructed. Cold air slapped my face as I stepped outside. The street was empty. Too empty. As if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath. My footsteps sounded unnaturally loud against the pavement. The docks were a 20-minute walk, but it felt like a lifetime. Every few minutes, I glanced behind me, convinced someone was following. A black SUV parked at the corner. A man pretending to read a newspaper at 6 a.m. A delivery van idling for no reason. Maybe I was imagining it, or maybe the dangerous world my parents hid from me was already watching. By the time I reached the warehouse, the sky had turned a pale gray, and a lonely seagull screamed somewhere overhead. The warehouse looked abandoned, rusted, cracked windows, faded paint. But someone had recently forced the lock. The metal latch hung broken. My heartbeat kicked up. I pushed the door open slowly. The interior was dark, dusty, and almost too silent. A single beam of sunlight cut through the broken roof, illuminating floating particles of dust like ghosts suspended in the air. "Hello." My voice trembled. No reply. I stepped deeper inside, cautiously, and that's when I heard it. A footstep. Behind me. I spun around. A tall figure stood at the entrance, half hidden in the shadows. A man wearing a dark coat, hood pulled low, hands in his pockets. My breath froze. "Who are you?" I demanded. The man stepped forward just enough so the light caught his face, rugged, tired-looking, with piercing eyes that seemed older than the rest of him. "You're Michael's son," he said quietly. My skin crawled. "Where are my parents?" I shot back. "Are they safe?" He exhaled slowly. "That depends on what you consider safe." My stomach twisted. "Are they alive?" A pause. A heavy one. "Yes. But they're not free." I took a shaky step toward him. "Tell me what's going on." He motioned for me to sit on a wooden crate. I did, because my legs were already about to collapse. He remained standing. "My name is Leo Hart," he began. "Your father and we used to work together." "Work where?" Another pause, as if the truth carried weight. "With the Department of Internal Intelligence. Off the books. Black operations. Classified surveillance." My heart stopped. My father. The quiet man who made pancakes on Sundays. Who laughed at old movies. Who never lost his temper. He worked undercover. Leo continued, watching my reaction closely. "Your parents weren't just volunteers in political campaigns. They were informants, placed to observe Senator Rayburn and his network. The senator was suspected of orchestrating illegal deals, laundering money, and cooperating with foreign liaisons." I blinked, stunned. "My parents were spies." Leo shook his head. "Spies is too dramatic. Think of them as insiders. People who gathered information by blending into everyday life. People no one would suspect. But why them?" His voice softened. "Because they were honest. Ordinary. Invisible. That made them perfect." My throat tightened painfully. I remembered all the small things, my father's late-night calls, my mother's nervous habits, the sudden long trips they said were church events. The notebook entries. The strange envelope. It was all making sense now, horrifying sense. Leo continued. "For years, they passed intel quietly. Small pieces. Patterns. Names. Enough to keep the investigation alive but not enough to expose them." "Expose them to what?" "To Rayburn's people." He paused. "People who don't leave loose ends." My chest tightened again. Leo stepped closer, lowering his voice. 3 weeks ago, Rayburn discovered there was a leak. Someone close to him was feeding the government information. Your father realized the net was tightening. They tried to disappear quietly, but Rayburn's men caught them. My breath caught. "What does the key do?" I asked quickly. "Why is everyone after it?" Leo reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope identical to the one the officers took from my house. He tossed it onto my lap. "That key unlocks a safe deposit box containing a ledger, a physical book of every illegal transaction Rayburn made over the last decade. Dates, accounts, offshore transfers, names." I stared at him, stunned. "Why not give it to the feds?" Leo's jaw clenched. "Because we don't know who's clean anymore. Somebody inside tipped Rayburn off. This is bigger than just the FBI or the DII. There are people at the top who will burn any evidence and anyone connected to it." The warehouse suddenly felt even colder. "So what do you want from me?" I asked quietly. Leo inhaled, hands clasped behind his back. "Your parents made one final move. They hid the ledger. They protected it with their lives. But only you can claim the safe deposit box because they transferred ownership to you 2 months ago." I blinked. "Me? Why me?" His answer shook me to the core. "Because your parents knew that if they were ever compromised, you were the only person Rayburn wouldn't suspect. Their entire plan was built around keeping you out of sight until this moment." I felt sick. My parents were risking everything, maybe dying, to protect not just me, but the truth. Leo leaned closer. You're not a bystander anymore. You can still save them, but only if you're willing to step into the world they tried to keep you away from. I swallowed hard, feeling the immense weight of the choice pressing down on me. What happens if I say no? Leo's eyes darkened. Then they die. And so do you. My entire body went numb. And if I say yes? A small, grim smile touched the corner of his mouth. Then the most powerful man in the state will do everything in his power to stop you, but you'll have the only weapon he fears. What weapon? Leo looked me straight in the eyes. The truth. The truth. The word echoed in my mind long after Leo said it. It didn't feel like a shield. It felt like a ticking bomb, one that could save my parents, or destroy everything. The warehouse air turned heavier as Leo paced slowly, calculating our next move. His boots echoed against the concrete floor like distant gunshots. I could feel the weight of danger pressing in from every side, as if the walls themselves were listening. He finally turned toward me. We have a few hours before Rayburn's men trace the call you received, he said. We need to move now. Where? I asked, gripping the backpack strap tighter. To the bank, he replied. The ledger is the only leverage we have. But if the key is that important, my voice trembled. Won't they expect me to go there? Leo nodded. They will. That's why we're not going alone, and we're not going through the front door. Before I could ask what he meant, he motioned for me to follow him. He slipped out of the warehouse with silent urgency, constantly scanning the street like a man who'd been hunted before. We headed down a narrow alleyway until reaching a dusty garage. Leo knocked twice in a strange rhythmic pattern. A mechanical click sounded from inside, and the garage door lifted just enough to let us slip under. Inside was a hidden operations base, dimly lit with old monitors, maps pinned to cork boards, radio scanners, and weapons locked in steel cases. It looked like a place where battles were planned, where betrayals were discovered, where survival depended on staying one step ahead. I swallowed hard. My life had turned into someone else's movie. Leo grabbed a folded map off a table. This city has 3 exits to the river. 2 are being watched. The third, he pointed at a narrow side street behind the bank, is barely known except by maintenance crews. You're saying we break in? No, Leo corrected, we break under. He pulled up a diagram showing the sewer system beneath the city. My stomach twisted. This is insane, I whispered. Leo looked at me calmly. Insane is walking into the bank lobby with the key in your hand. Rayburn has people everywhere, tellers, guards, even cleaners. A cold realization sliced through me. You mean, they're already waiting for me? Leo didn't answer. He didn't need to. We packed quickly. A flashlight. A small radio. Gloves. And a burner phone. Leo handed me a knife, small, sharp, lightweight. I'm not using this, I said, pushing it away. It's for cutting rope or fabric, he replied. Nothing more. But you need every tool you can carry. I hesitated, then pocketed it. 20 minutes later, we were moving through the city's underground tunnels. The air was cold, damp, and thick. Water dripped rhythmically from rusted pipes above us. Every echo felt like footsteps behind us. Rats scurried through the shadows, and I tried not to flinch. Leo moved with practiced precision, checking every corner before signaling me forward. Did you know my parents long? I finally asked, voice echoing slightly. Long enough to see they were good people caught in a bad game, he said. Your father saved my life. I paused. When? 5 years ago. We were gathering intel on one of Rayburn's shell companies. I got made. They were going to execute me in a shipping container. His jaw tightened. Your father created a diversion. Nearly got himself killed. I blinked, stunned. My father never mentioned it. He wouldn't, Leo said. Men like him don't talk about danger. They carry it quietly. The tunnel curved into darkness. My flashlight beam trembled in my hand. What about my mother? I asked softly. Leo actually stopped walking. Your mother, he said slowly, was the smartest of all of us. She connected dots no one else could. She's the one who realized the ledger existed in the first place. My chest tightened. They're stronger than you think, Leo continued. But even the strongest fall when the enemy is already inside. We reached a ladder leading up to a rusted hatch. Leo listened carefully, placed his ear against the metal, then whispered, "Clear." We climbed up into a small maintenance room behind the bank. The air smelled of old paint and disinfectant. Leo pulled out a small device, scanning the area for bugs. 2 guards stationed by the vault, he said, watching the screen. They're not bank employees. They're Raybans. A sinking feeling gripped me. What now? We create a distraction, Leo said. Something big enough to draw them away, but not big enough to trigger a full lockdown. He placed a small smoke emitter near the ventilation grate and set a timer. When this goes off, they'll evacuate the lobby. The guards will move to check the vent system. We'll have a narrow window to reach the safe deposit vault. He looked at me. You remember the key? I nodded, patting the backpack. Good. Because once we open that box, everything changes. The smoke emitter clicked. A hiss filled the room. Leo grabbed my arm. Move. We rushed through a narrow hallway, slipping into a staircase that led directly to the vault corridor. The alarm hadn't triggered yet. But I could hear shouting from above, the smoke had worked. We reached the heavy vault door. It was open, the guards had left in a rush. Box 719, Leo whispered. We scanned rows of metal drawers until we found it, lower corner, slightly rusted, almost forgotten. With shaking hands, I inserted the key. It turned smoothly. Leo looked around sharply. Hurry. I pulled open the drawer. Inside was a thick leather-bound notebook, old, worn, filled to the brim. Not just a ledger. A black book of secrets. Names. Codes. Locations. Dates. Offshore accounts. The kind of information that could topple politicians, collapse businesses, and expose the darkest deals of the last decade. My parents had risked everything for this. We got it, I whispered. Leo didn't smile. Because suddenly, from behind us, a voice cut through the air, smooth, cold, unmistakably confident. Step away from the box. We turned. A man in a tailored suit stood at the end of the corridor, flanked by 2 armed guards. Senator Rayburn. The most powerful man in the state. His icy smile didn't reach his eyes. You have something that belongs to me, he said softly. And now, you're going to give it back. The hunt had officially begun. The story reaches its climax, danger, betrayal, sacrifice, and the truth revealed. The hallway felt colder the moment Senator Rayburn stepped into it. His presence wasn't loud, it was precise, calculated, and venomously calm. The kind of calm that meant he had already planned every outcome. Except, maybe, this one. Leo instinctively moved in front of me, shielding me with his body. The senator's guards raised their guns slightly, not enough to fire, but enough to promise they could end us in a heartbeat. Rayburn's eyes landed on the ledger in my hands. Michael and Anna, he said, shaking his head slowly, should have known better than to involve their child. Where are my parents? I demanded, gripping the ledger tight enough that my knuckles turned white. Rayburn tilted his head slightly, as if amused by my bravery. Alive. For now. Leo took a step forward. Let them go. Rayburn laughed softly, a quiet, chilling sound. After all they've stolen from me. After the years they spent feeding lies to my enemies. No, Leo, your friends will pay for their betrayal. And you, his gaze sharpened, you will pay for resurfacing. Leo didn't respond, but his jaw clenched with fury. The senator clasped his hands behind his back. Here is what will happen. You will hand me the ledger. Then you will come with us. Both of you. Once I confirm the contents are intact, I may consider leaving you alive. His voice carried the cold certainty of a man who had buried dozens before us. My heart pounded. My parents' lives hung by a thread. Mine too. And worst of all, this ledger was the only proof left. Leo leaned toward me, whispering so quietly I barely heard him. Don't give him the book. But. Leo cut me off with a look, one that carried 5 years of undercover suffering, sacrifice, loyalty, and everything he owed my father. Then Leo did something that made my breath stop. He raised his hands in surrender. "I'll go," he said calmly. "Take me instead." Rayburn lifted an eyebrow. A touching offer. But unnecessary. He nodded toward his men. "Get the book." The guards moved in. I took a step back instinctively, but Leo suddenly shoved me behind him and slammed his shoulder into the first guard. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the enclosed vault corridor. Rayburn shouted for his men to take cover. Leo grabbed my arm. "Run." We sprinted down the corridor while bullets clattered off the metal walls. I could barely breathe as we burst through the door into the maintenance hallway. Leo slammed it shut behind us and locked it. "That won't stop them for long," he panted. "Move." We ran down the narrow stairs, vault alarms now blaring across the bank. Rayburn's voice echoed behind the metal door, full of rage. "Don't let them leave the building. Bring me that book." Leo pushed me forward. "Head for the southwest stairwell. It leads to the loading bay." Footsteps thundered after us as Rayburn's guards surged down the opposite hallway. We reached the stairwell door, and Leo kicked it open. "Down," he ordered. We flew down the steps. My lungs burned. My legs felt like they were cracking. But adrenaline kept me moving. Halfway down, I heard footsteps rushing above us. "They're catching up." I gasped. Leo reached into his coat and pulled out a small cylindrical object. "Close your eyes." He tossed it up the stairwell. A blinding flash lit the entire stairwell, followed by a thunderous concussive blast. Even with my eyes shut, the light burned through my eyelids. The guards screamed behind us, disoriented. Leo grabbed my arm. "Keep going." We reached the bottom floor and burst into a wide loading bay filled with crates and delivery trucks. Sunlight poured in through the open docking doors. "Almost there," Leo said. But before we could reach the exit, Rayburn's voice cut through the chaos. "You're running from the wrong enemy." We spun around. Rayburn stood at the opposite end of the loading bay, alone, no guards, no guns, just his cold, controlled smile. He had beaten us here. How? I started. Leo swallowed hard. "He has people everywhere." Rayburn took a slow step toward us. "You two have put me in an inconvenient position," he said. "But it ends now. Give me the ledger, and I will be generous. You will disappear. Quietly. Painfully, perhaps. But the world will move on." "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why all this corruption? Why ruin so many lives?" Rayburn's eyes hardened. "Power," he said simply. "Real power. The kind that shapes nations, removes obstacles, controls fate. Your parents thought they were heroes. They were merely stepping in front of a moving train." Leo whispered to me, "Keep him talking." But Rayburn's patience was slipping. "Last chance," he warned. "Hand over the ledger." I felt the weight of the book in my hands. This single object had destroyed my parents' freedom. Destroyed Leo's life. And was about to destroy mine. Unless. I made a decision. "No," I said. Rayburn's eyes widened a fraction, the first crack in his composure. I reached into my backpack and pulled out the ledger, but instead of handing it to him, I held it high. "Everything in this book is already backed up," I lied. "Digital copies. Encrypted. Sent to people who will release it if anything happens to me." Rayburn froze. His jaw clenched. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Try me." I saw it, the first flicker of fear in his eyes. Leo caught on immediately. "She's telling the truth," Leo added. "This is over for you." Rayburn's mask finally cracked. His composure shattered. His voice dropped into a snarl. "You little." Behind him, a sudden explosion of shouts filled the air. "Federal agents! Drop your weapon." Real FBI agents, dozens of them, stormed into the loading bay, rifles raised. Rayburn spun around in shock. Leo whispered, "Your call last night wasn't just traced by them, it was traced by us." I blinked. "Us?" Leo grinned slightly, exhausted but triumphant. "I told you, not every agency is corrupt." Rayburn attempted to run, but agents tackled him to the ground. He kicked, screamed, cursed my parents, Cursed me, cursed everyone who dared expose him. But it was over. The truth had won. 2 hours later, I was taken to a secure facility where my parents were waiting for me. Alive. Exhausted. But alive. My mother ran into me first, sobbing as she held my face in her hands. My father hugged me so tightly I felt his heartbeat pounding against mine. For a full minute, none of us spoke. We just existed in relief, in disbelief, in love. "We're so sorry," my mother whispered. My father added, "We never wanted you involved." I hugged them both. "You raised me to do the right thing," I said. "Today, I just followed your example." For the first time in months, maybe years, my parents smiled without fear. The nightmare was over. But the truth would live on. And it would change everything.